Once upon a time, before the fall, there was Konami, Snatcher, Castlevania, Metal Gear Solid, Silent Hill, classics, masterpieces, but now all we hear of is the Dark Ages. Before Konami would go on to dry fuck us with the cancellation of Silent Hills and the glorious experience that is Metal Gear Survive, which I still can't believe anyone actually bought, they were invested in the ideas of their creators, the most well-known of them being the Tarantino of gaming, Hideo Kojima. Kojima is nowadays most famous for, obviously, the Metal Gear series, and to a lesser extent his Sega CD classic Snatcher, that in order to own, you're probably going to have to sell off a few of your kids, not just one. But one of his best games is one that has never actually been released outside of Japan, officially. POLICENAUTS was originally released on the NEC PC-98 in 1994, and later to the 3DO, thank God that's not where it died, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn. It's a point-and-click style game done very much in the same style as Snatcher. You play as a private investigator named Jonathan Ingram, who was once a member of the POLICENAUTS, a space-focused police force. However, after an accident sends John hurtling into space, he is presumed dead for 25 years until he is suddenly found frozen in a space pod. When John comes back, he's still 25 years younger, but the rest of the planet has moved on. His wife is remarried, all the other members of the POLICENAUTS have totally different careers, and he basically has to adjust to his new life. But one night, his ex-wife comes to him asking for help to locate her current husband, and this whole situation kicks off the course of the game, which is essentially Lethal Weapon, but with mecha and other sci-fi shit. And yes, that's as awesome as it sounds. Gameplay in POLICENAUTS is very simple. Like I said, it's a point-and-click story. For the most part, you'll just be moving a cursor around, examining objects, and talking to people. But what's really cool is the attention to detail here. Pretty much everything you see, you can interact with in some way, even small shit that barely even looks like you'd even be able to do so. And half the fun comes from finding things to interact with that you didn't think you'd be able to. For example, see that girl there with the lovely chesticles? If you see fit, you can touch them. As a matter of fact, you can touch pretty much any female you come across. You can comment on their legs, their breasts, whatever. Essentially, it's a sexual harassment simulator. Perfect for the year 2018. Oh, how times were different in 1994. Visually, this game is gorgeous to look at. It's a really nice blend of fully animated CGI cutscenes and standard cell art, but unlike a lot of visual novels, the images aren't all completely static. For the most part they are, but sometimes you'll see animated light rays or streetlights or reflections on water. It really helps give the game a really great atmosphere. Keep in mind, this is all from the PlayStation version. Interestingly, the original version released on the PC-98 used no CGI whatsoever, and is actually done entirely in pixel art. It looks gorgeous too, and has a stunning level of detail, but since the PC-98 version has never been translated, I can't play it. And if it has been translated, I can't find that shit anywhere. Now, there are certain parts in the game where I wanted to smash my system out of frustration. Now you're probably thinking, how in the fuck could a point-and-click game be frustrating? Well, at certain points, and thank merciful Christ they are few and far between, the game goes into an arcade shooter mode where you have to aim your crosshairs and fire at certain targets. Keep in mind, the PlayStation version didn't have light gun support, so you have to do all this with a D-pad and a slow-moving cursor. And the targets tend to be small and move around a lot. You can change the speed of your cursor, but that ultimately ends up making you either move as slow as dried snail shit in the sun, or as fast as a hummingbird on the hardest crack. Now, keep in mind the Sega Saturn version included gun support, and it's possible to get a physical fan-translated copy of it. So if you have a Saturn, I definitely recommend that version for that reason alone. It's actually the Saturn version that almost saw an authentic North American release. Hell, it even had box art done up that was even shown in some Sega pamphlets. But according to Kojima, it never saw a release because they couldn't get the English dialogue to sync with the cutscenes. You really do need to play POLICENAUTS. It's a charming, wonderfully written, and beautiful looking game that has Kojima's signatures all over it, such as that lovely musical cue you hear at the beginning of the original Metal Gear Solid. Bet you didn't know that was actually just a cue from the full theme song from POLICENAUTS. There are other things in this game that appear in the later Metal Gear Solids too, but I won't spoil them, because I think that's just fun to figure it out on your own. Honestly, all the characters are well fleshed out, they're all likable and interesting, and the story is really hard not to get invested in. You really want to see how this turns out. I haven't had experience with the Sega Saturn translation, but I can confirm after spending over 10 hours with the translated PlayStation version that it's the perfect way to experience this hidden gem. And I have no problem recommending that you download the PlayStation English translation, because there's no conceivable fucking way that Konami, with their current track record, is going to release this at any point. And let's face it, if they did, it would probably come out as a mobile game, and each part of the game would be split up into parts that you'd have to pay individually for. Or, you know, it would just be a fucking pachinko machine. Fucking Konami, man.
Play the movie. I want you to smile.